Hello students, this is a review about how to make a stuffy or an ugly doll or a pillow. First you're going to have all of your pieces sewn to the front panel before you go around and sew your pillow closed. First, threading your needle. For this project, I like to use really thick string, so I poke one end through my needle and then I pull until the two ends match up. This will give me a double thick thread. You don't do this for all sewing projects, but it makes this one easy. You make a curly Q, then stick the end under, up through. And because I like to have a really big knot, I'll do it a second time while leaving my first knot loose, and sometimes that gives you a nice big thick double knot that lines up if you're lucky. This is how you're going to sew a pillow or a stuffy closed. So I have my string on my needle and I'm going to start in between the two panels. In this example, I have actually just folded one piece in half because I didn't want to make that cut, but you will probably have two separate pieces of felt. I started by inserting my needle in between the two pieces of bread in the sandwich so that that knot can hide in that middle and no one will see the knot. And I've actually already begun to sew. I'm starting something called the whip stitch. That means that you keep on poking your needle in from one side. In this case, you see me bringing my needle around the side and putting it into the back of both panels and then poking it all the way up through the front panel so that, like a spiral notebook, your thread is cinching closed the sides of your two pieces. This is called whip stitch. Whip stitch holds felt together pretty well, and the trick is just to make it look as even as you can and to keep it going tightly and evenly. Your two pieces of felt have to be lined up really well so that they can be closed together with a whip stitch. Even more easy is the running stitch. That's basically the stitch that swims over and under to make a dashed line. So you see me pushing my needle from front to back, and that's probably how you sewed on any details to your pillow or stuffy, and you get a good view here of the front and back, trying to keep those stitches evenly sized, and again, not making them very big. They should not be too much bigger than a fingernail, and you should try and make them smaller. Once you get good at the running stitch, you can even poke your needle through and do more than one stitch at a time. So you can poke your needle in through the front and watch it come back out through the front, and maybe even add a second stitch onto your needle before pulling it all the way through. In between every stitch, I pull the string all the way through, slowly, being certain not to snag. Snags happen, and you can always cut your string if you can't unsnag it and tie a knot and continue on. If you are going to do a blanket stitch, that means, like the whip stitch, you're going to only insert your needle from one side. In my case, usually I choose the back. So I'm choosing to pull my needle up through the back, but then as my thread pulls through and I watch that shrinking loop, I stick my needle down through it. So here I am again, up through the back, watch the shrinking loop and stick my needle down through it so I can continue stitching from underneath. And that makes a really cool blanket stitch. You just have to kind of pull that spine straight across the ends of your felt. Now, when you are out of string, I want you to try and get your needle in the middle again, just like I did. I'm going to cut the needle off, and then I'm going to take the two strings and I'm going to tie them just like I'm tying a shoelace. That's why this is kind of easy. By cutting the needle off, we get two strings. And without pulling your string too tight, leave it loose running through your felt, tie those double knots and give it a snip.